You know what's funny about affairs? The way they use business trips for their little rendezvous. How they lie straight to your face, thinking you're clueless. My wife thought I'd always be that understanding husband who turned a blind eye to her special friendship with a coworker. But when I told her not to come back home if she went to New York with him, she just laughed. Well, she didn't believe my words, but she sure believed the new locks on our doors and divorce papers waiting for her. Though that was just the beginning of her downfall. You know what's funny? Looking back now, I can pinpoint exactly where everything started to fall apart, but at the moment, I was too blind to see it. The signs were there, clear as day, but I guess that's what happens when you're wearing rose-colored glasses. All the red flags just look like flags. My name is Michael Turner, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had it all figured out. A successful career as a software engineer in Boston, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and what I believed was a rock-solid marriage to Sarah, my wife of 7 years. We met in college, fell in love, and everything seemed perfect. Maybe that was the problem. It was too perfect. I've always prided myself on being a rational guy. You know, the type who approaches problems with logic rather than emotion. That's probably why I was so good at my job. Coding doesn't care about feelings, it's all about logic and patterns. But relationships? They're messy, more complicated. And sometimes, being rational isn't enough. Sarah worked as a marketing executive at a prestigious firm downtown. She was brilliant at her job, always climbing the corporate ladder, making connections and networking. I supported her every step of the way. When she started spending more time at work, I understood. When she began attending more team-building events and client meetings, I didn't question it. After all, that's what a supportive husband does, right? Then David Reynolds joined her company as the new creative director. Tall, charismatic, recently divorced, the kind of guy who walks into a room and immediately becomes the center of attention. Sarah mentioned him casually at first, just another colleague. But something about the way her eyes lit up when she talked about him made my stomach twist. Still, I pushed those feelings aside. I wasn't going to be that jealous, controlling husband. That wasn't who I was. My best friend Tom warned me. He worked in the same building as Sarah, different company, but he saw things. Mike, he'd say, I don't want to stir up trouble, but something's off. I brushed him off, told him he was seeing things that weren't there. I trusted Sarah completely, maybe too completely. Our routine changed gradually. Date nights became rare, then non-existent. She started going to the gym more often, buying new clothes, paying more attention to her appearance. Normal things, right? People focus on self-improvement all the time. But it was the small things that started adding up. The way she'd turn her phone face down when I walked into the room, how she'd step out to take calls, the mysterious work emergencies that kept coming up on weekends. Looking back, I should have trusted my gut. But hindsight is 20/20, and I was too busy trying to be the perfect, understanding husband to see what was happening right in front of me. This is the story of how being too understanding, too trusting, can sometimes be your biggest mistake. And trust me, the price I paid for that lesson was steep. It was a regular Thursday evening when I first caught a glimpse of what was really going on. I was working late from home, finishing up some code for a major project launch, when Sarah texted saying she'd be home late again. Another client dinner, she said. By then, these late nights had become so common that I barely looked up from my laptop. Around 9 p.m., I decided to take a break and grab dinner with Tom. He'd been texting me about trying this new burger place downtown, and I figured why not? Sarah wouldn't be home for hours anyway. I didn't tell her about my plans. I'd gotten used to eating alone on these nights. The restaurant was packed, the kind of place that attracts the after-work crowd. Tom and I found seats at the bar, ordered our food, and started catching up. That's when I heard it, Sarah's laugh. It's distinctive, the kind you can pick out in a crowd. I turned around, thinking I'd wave hello, maybe join her client dinner if there was room. But what I saw stopped me cold. Sarah was there all right, but this was no client dinner. She was sitting in a corner booth with David Reynolds, just the two of them. Her hand was resting on his arm as she laughed at something he'd said. The way they were leaning in towards each other, the wine glasses, the intimate setting. This wasn't business. Tom saw them too. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Mike, don't do anything stupid." But I wasn't planning to. Instead, I just sat there, watching as my wife enjoyed what was clearly a date with another man. The burger I'd ordered turned to ash in my mouth. I waited until they left, about an hour later. Sarah never noticed me, They were too absorbed in each other. When they walked out, David's hand rested on the small of her back. That casual touch felt like a punch to my gut. Back home, I waited. Sarah walked in around 11 p.m., humming to herself. "Hey, honey," she said, dropping her keys in the bowl by the door. "Sorry I'm so late. The client meeting ran long. They're really interested in our new campaign." I looked at her, this woman I'd loved and trusted for 7 years, as she stood there lying to my face without missing a beat. Her cheeks were flushed from the wine, her eyes bright from an evening of flirting with another man. She looked happy, relaxed, more than she'd been with me in months. "How was the meeting?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She launched into a detailed story about client requirements and marketing strategies. The lies flowed effortlessly, each word driving home the reality of my situation. My wife wasn't just staying late at work. She was actively deceiving me. I went to bed that night with my mind racing. Part of me wanted to confront her, to demand the truth. But another part, the strategic part, knew that this wasn't the time. I needed more information. If Sarah was comfortable lying about dinner, what else was she lying about? After that night at the restaurant, I started paying attention. Real attention. Not the kind where you pretend everything's fine while your world crumbles around you, but the kind where you actually look at what's happening with clear eyes. Being a software engineer has taught me one thing: data doesn't lie. So I started collecting data. I created a spreadsheet. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but stay with me. I logged every late meeting, every client dinner, every team building event. I noted the time she left, when she came home, and any inconsistencies in her stories. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Tom helped too, though I never told him about my spreadsheet. He started casually mentioning when he saw Sarah and David together in the building. Coffee runs that lasted an hour. Lunch breaks that stretched into the afternoon. The way they always seemed to leave the office together on client meeting days. One morning, Sarah left her laptop open while she took a shower. I'd never snooped before. It went against everything I believed about trust in a relationship. But the Excel file, clearly visible on her screen, caught my eye. Q4_marketing_budget_review. Something about the file name seemed off. I clicked it open. It wasn't a budget review. It was her personal calendar, meticulously color-coded. Red for actual client meetings, blue for regular work days, and green. Green was for Doctor. The green entries matched perfectly with her late meetings. My stomach lurched when I saw next weekend marked in green with the note, BC Weekend Retreat. The shower was still running when I quickly took photos of the calendar with my phone. My hands were shaking, but I managed to close the file and return the laptop exactly as I'd found it. When Sarah came out of the shower, humming and getting ready for work, I acted normal. "Big day today?" I asked casually. "Oh, the usual," she smiled, gathering her things. "Though I might be late tonight. We have that client presentation to prepare for." I checked my photos later. Today was marked in green. I called Tom during lunch. "Can you do me a favor? Let me know if you see Sarah and David leaving together today." Around 6 p.m., he texted me a photo. Sarah and David walking to his car, her overnight bag in his hand. The same bag she'd packed that morning, telling me she might need to stay late at the office. That evening, I sat in our home office, staring at my evidence spreadsheet. The entries stared back at me, each one a betrayal, each one a lie. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Working late tonight? Don't wait up." The heart emoji felt like a slap in the face. I opened my laptop and started researching divorce lawyers in Boston. As I scrolled through reviews and websites, I realized I felt oddly calm. The shock and pain were still there, but they were muted now, replaced by something else: determination. I'd always prided myself on being logical, on following where the data led. Well, the data was clear now. I'm not the kind of guy who flies off the handle easily, but everyone has their breaking point. Mine came when Sarah announced her plans for a business conference in New York. The same conference I'd seen marked in green on her calendar as DR Weekend. The timing couldn't have been more perfect, or worse, depending on how you look at it. We were having dinner, one of those rare nights when she was actually home. She dropped the bomb so casually, like she was telling me about the weather. "By the way, I've got this amazing opportunity," she said, pushing her food around her plate. "The company's sending a team to New York next weekend for this marketing conference. David thinks it could be huge for our department." I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, watching her spin this web of lies like it was nothing. The words "David thinks" hit me like a ton of bricks. That was the moment I decided enough was enough. No more Mr. Nice Guy. No more turning a blind eye. Cut the crap, Sarah, I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. Her head snapped up, eyes wide. I never talked to her like that before. I know about you and David. I know there's no conference. The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. Classic Sarah, always quick on her feet. What are you talking about? Of course there's a conference. God, Michael, are you spying on me now? I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of her calendar. Green for DR? Really subtle. Tell me, does the company know they're funding your romantic getaway? She sat there, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. For once in her life, Sarah was speechless. Then came the waterworks, right on cue, as if someone had flipped a switch. It's not what you think, she started, but I cut her off. Save it. I'm not interested in whatever story you've cooked up. Here's the deal. If you go to New York with him, don't bother coming back. I mean it, Sarah. This is it. This is your wake-up call. You're being ridiculous, she said, wiping her eyes. Nothing's going on. David's just a colleague. You're making mountains out of molehills. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Wow. You're really going to stick to that story? Even now? I stood up, my dinner forgotten. Fine. Go to New York. Go play house with David. Just remember what I said. If you go, we're done. No second chances, no explanations, no reconciliation. Done? The tears stopped as suddenly as they'd started. Her expression changed to something I'd never seen before, a mix of defiance and calculation. You don't mean that, she said quietly. You're just upset. You'll get over it. Try me, I replied, walking out of the dining room. I heard her calling after me, but I didn't turn around. The ball was in her court now. You'd think after dropping a bombshell like that, things would change. They did, just not in the way I expected. Sarah spent the next few days acting like everything was hunky-dory, like our conversation never happened. Talk about living in denial. She went about her routine as usual, but with an extra dose of sweetness that made my teeth hurt. Making my favorite breakfast, asking about my day, even suggesting we watch that sci-fi show I'd been trying to get her to watch for months. Classic manipulation tactics. I could see right through them. Tom kept me updated on the office situation. She's still planning to go. He texted me Wednesday morning. Overheard her and David talking about hotel reservations. The knife twisted a little deeper, but I stayed frosty. I had a plan, and I was sticking to it. Thursday night, I was in our home office when Sarah came in, looking like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. About New York, she started, perching on the edge of my desk. I've been thinking about what you said. I looked up from my laptop, waiting for the other shoe to drop. She had that look, the one she gets when she thinks she's about to nail a pitch. I know you're worried, she continued, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away, and something flashed in her eyes. Anger? Frustration? But this is really important for my career. David's arranged meetings with some major clients. And, stop right there. I cut her off. Just say what you mean. You're choosing to go. She straightened up, dropping the sweet act. Yes, I'm going. You're being unreasonable, and I won't let your unfounded jealousy hold me back. This is a legitimate business trip, and if you can't trust me, that's your problem. I just nodded, turned back to my laptop, and started typing an email to my lawyer. Sarah stood there for a moment, probably waiting for me to cave like I usually did. When I didn't, she huffed and walked out. Friday morning, she packed her bag like it was any other business trip. I watched from the doorway as she folded her new lingerie, the stuff she bought last week, but never wore for me, in her suitcase. Real appropriate for a business conference. I'll see you Sunday night, she said, wheeling her suitcase to the door. Try not to worry so much. Everything's fine. I didn't answer. She paused at the door, probably expecting me to stop her, to beg her not to go. Instead, I walked to my home office and closed the door. Through the window, I watched her get into a taxi. Not David's car this time. At least they were being somewhat smart about it. As soon as her taxi turned the corner, I made 3 calls. One to a locksmith, one to my lawyer, and one to a moving company. The pieces were already in place. Now it was just a matter of timing. They say the best revenge is living well. I say the best revenge is being prepared. While Sarah was off playing Romeo and Juliet with David in New York, I was orchestrating the biggest change of her life, and she didn't have a clue. First stop, the locksmith. Guy showed up bright and early Saturday morning, right after I confirmed Sarah's flight had landed in New York. Going for the full change? He asked, eyeing our high-end security system. When I nodded, he let out a low whistle. Must be quite a story. You have no idea, I replied, watching him work. By noon, every lock in the house had been changed, including the garage door opener and the security system codes. Sarah's precious little electronic key fob? Useless now. Next up, the movers. I'd hired them to pack up everything that was exclusively Sarah's. Her clothes, her shoes, including those ridiculously expensive Louboutins she'd bought last month for client meetings, obviously, her personal items, her makeup. Everything went into labeled boxes, ready for transport to a storage unit I'd rented in her name. Tom came by to help, bringing coffee and his trademark brutal honesty. You really think she won't try to wiggle her way back in? He asked, helping me pack up her home office. Oh, she'll try, I said, carefully boxing up the photos from her desk. Most of them were of us. Vacations, parties, wedding photos. 7 years of memories, all heading for storage. But I'm not leaving any wiggle room. The lawyer had been busy too. The papers were ready, just waiting for my signature. I'd gone for the nuclear option, filing for divorce on grounds of adultery. Let her try to explain those hotel receipts and business dinners to a judge. By Saturday evening, the house looked different. Emptier in some ways, but cleaner too, like ripping off a Band-Aid. It hurts like hell, but at least the wound can start healing. My phone had been blowing up with messages from Sarah all day. Normal stuff at first. Just landed. Weather's great. Then, about to head into meetings. Miss you. Each message was like a fresh slap in the face. The lies just kept coming. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I spent Saturday night setting up my new home office in what used to be her yoga room. Tom helped me move the furniture, and we ordered pizza, cracking open a couple of beers. You know, Tom said, looking around at the half-empty house, I've never seen you this calm. It's kind of scary. I shrugged. Nothing scary about it. I'm just done. Sometimes, being done is the most peaceful feeling in the world. Sunday morning, I woke up early and drove to the storage facility. The manager was expecting me. I'd already arranged everything. Unit 247, he said, handing me the paperwork. Climate-controlled, just like you asked. Key will be held at the front desk for Mrs. Turner. Back home, I finished setting up my new office, then sat down to write Sarah an email. Short, simple, to the point. Just the address of the storage unit and a note that her stuff would be there. No accusations, no anger, no emotion. Just facts. They say karma's a kick in the teeth, but watching it in action? That's something else entirely. Sarah came home early, 3 days into her conference, probably thinking she'd smooth things over with the usual song and dance. Boy, was she in for a surprise. I was at work when the security camera notification popped up on my phone. There she was, standing at our front door, looking fresh as a daisy despite her exhausting business meetings. The timestamp showed 2:14 p.m. Funny. Her flight wasn't supposed to land until 7. I watched through the app as she tried her key. Once, twice, 3 times. Then the security keypad, same result. Finally, she pulled out her phone. Right on cue, mine started buzzing. Richard, she said when I picked up, her voice shaking slightly. The door won't open. Did something happen to the locks? You don't live there anymore, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Your things are at Storage Plus, Unit 247. The keys waiting at the front desk. There was a long pause. Through the camera, I could see her face going through a range of emotions. Confusion, shock, anger. What are you talking about? This isn't funny, Richard. I'm not trying to be funny. I told you what would happen if you went to New York. You went anyway. End of story. You can't do this. Her voice was rising now, that control facade cracking. This is my house too. I have rights. Check your email, I said. I sent you the storage unit details and my lawyer's contact information. He's expecting your call. She started crying then. Those same tears she'd used to manipulate me so many times before. Please, Richard, let me explain. It's not what you think. Just let me come in and we can talk about this. Like you talked about going to New York with David? Or should we talk about all those other client meetings that weren't really client meetings? My voice was ice cold now. Game's over, Sarah. You made your choice. Through the camera, I watched her pace on the porch, running her hands through her hair. You're being ridiculous. Nothing happened. David and I are just... Save it for your lawyer. I cut her off. And Sarah? Don't bother trying to come back later. The locks aren't the only thing that's changed. I ended the call and switched off my phone. Tom, who'd been sitting in my office pretending not to listen, let out a low whistle. Cold as ice, man. You okay? I nodded, turning back to my computer. Through the security app, I watched Sarah make more phone calls, probably to David, maybe to her friends. Eventually, a car pulled up, one of her girlfriends by the look of it. Sarah got in, mascara streaking down her face, and they drove away. If you think changing the locks was the end of it, you clearly don't know Sarah. The woman could sell ice to an Eskimo, and she wasn't about to let 7 years of marriage slip away without pulling out all the stops. The email started first. Long, emotional messages about how sorry she was, how she'd made a huge mistake, how nothing really happened with David. Each one carefully crafted to hit all my weak spots. I read them all but didn't respond. What was there to say? Then came the flying monkeys, all our mutual friends, reaching out one by one. Sarah's a mess, man, said Jim from our tennis club. She's really torn up about this. Rachel, her college roommate, called to tell me I was being too harsh. Everyone makes mistakes, she said. You should at least hear her out. Tom kept me updated on the office drama. Apparently, Sarah had taken a week of emergency leave, and David was suddenly working remotely. Funny how that worked out. The turning point came on Thursday. I was leaving work when I spotted her waiting by my car. She looked different. No power suit, no perfect makeup. Just Sarah, looking small and lost in jeans and a sweater. Please, she said as I approached. Just give me 5 minutes. I almost walked away, but something made me stop. Maybe I needed this. Needed to hear whatever she had to say to really close this chapter. For minutes, I said, checking my watch. She took a deep breath. I never slept with him, she started. I know how it looks, but nothing physical happened. We just connected. He understood me, appreciated me in a way that... Stop. I cut her off. You really think that makes it better? That you threw away our marriage for some emotional fantasy? It wasn't like that. The tears were starting now. I was confused, flattered by the attention. But I realized in New York that it was all just empty. David isn't you. I want to come home. I'll quit my job, cut all contact with him. Whatever you want. I laughed, actually laughed out loud. You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about David. It's about you. About how easily you lied to my face, day after day. About how you ignored every boundary, every warning, because you thought I wouldn't actually do anything about it. I'll change, she whispered. I'll prove it to you. Just give me another chance. No, I said simply. You had your chance. You made your choice. Now you get to live with it. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Richard, please. I love you. Doesn't that count for anything? Love. I shook my head. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't push someone to their breaking point and then act surprised when they break. I got in my car, leaving her standing there in the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I could see her pull out her phone, probably calling David. Or maybe one of our friends, looking for another angle to work. They say bad news travels fast, but in the corporate world, it moves at the speed of light. Within a week of our parking lot conversation, the whole office knew about Sarah and David's situation. Turned out I wasn't the only one who'd had enough of their little charade. Tom called me on Friday morning, his voice unusually serious. You might want to grab some popcorn for this one, he said. HR just called both of them in for a meeting. Apparently, someone anonymously reported their inappropriate relationship and all those fake expense reports for their little rendezvous. I hadn't reported them, didn't need to. Karma has a way of catching up all on its own. Later that day, Tom filled me in on the fallout. David had been fired on the spot. Something about misuse of company funds and abuse of his position. Sarah had been put on administrative leave pending investigation. The news spread through our social circle like wildfire. Suddenly, All those friends who'd been telling me to hear her out were suspiciously quiet. Funny how quickly people change their tune when the truth comes out. Sarah tried calling me again that weekend. When I didn't pick up, she sent a long text. Everything's falling apart. David quit speaking to me the moment HR got involved. He's even trying to pin all the expense reports on me. I need you. Please. I read the message 3 times, marveling at how she still thought she could pull my strings. Instead of responding, I blocked her number. Done was done. My lawyer called on Monday with updates. Sarah's attorney had reached out about a potential settlement. She's willing to agree to all your terms, he said. Wants to avoid any mention of adultery in the paperwork. Apparently, she's worried about her professional reputation. I almost laughed at that. Now she was worried about her reputation? After months of flaunting her affair in front of the entire office? Tell them no deal, I said. Let's proceed as planned. The following weeks were a blur of paperwork and legal meetings. Sarah tried everything to delay the process. Claimed she needed more time to review the documents, that she wanted to attempt reconciliation, that she was seeking therapy to better herself. My lawyers saw right through it all. Tom kept me updated on the office situation, even though I didn't ask. Sarah had finally been fired. Something about breach of trust and misappropriation of company resources. David had already landed a new job in another state, leaving Sarah to deal with the aftermath alone. Her parents reached out to me, which was unexpected. Her father, a man I'd always respected, asked to meet for coffee. I want you to know, he said, looking older than I remembered, that we understand. Sarah, she's always been her own worst enemy, always pushing boundaries until something breaks. I nodded, appreciating his honesty. She gets that from her mother, he continued, stirring his coffee absently. That need for excitement, for validation, cost us our marriage too, back in the day. That conversation helped more than any therapy session could have. It wasn't just about Sarah's betrayal anymore. It was about patterns, choices, and consequences. The company's HR department called me for a statement about Sarah and David's relationship. I kept it professional, sticking to the facts I could prove. No need to twist the knife. Sarah had done enough damage to herself. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding. I joined a gym, started taking coding classes to upgrade my skills, even joined a local hiking group. Tom and his wife had me over for dinner regularly, introducing me to new people who didn't know my story, didn't look at me with pity. One evening, while clearing out some old files, I found a photo from our wedding day. Sarah was beaming at the camera, young and beautiful and full of promises. I looked at it for a long moment, then dropped it in the shredder. Some memories aren't worth keeping. 6 months after Sarah moved out, I found myself sitting in the judge's chamber for the final divorce hearing. The whole process had been messier than it needed to be, but that's what happens when one party can't accept reality. Sarah showed up looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. The polished corporate executive was gone, replaced by someone who'd finally realized actions have consequences. She tried to catch my eye several times during the proceedings, but I kept my focus on the judge. Her last-ditch effort at reconciliation had come the night before, in the form of a lengthy email. She'd outlined all the ways she'd change, all the therapy she'd been through, all the lessons she'd learned. The old me might have wavered, might have seen it as a sign of genuine remorse. But I'd grown past that. Tom was waiting outside the courthouse when it was done. "How does it feel to be officially single again?" he asked, handing me a coffee. "Like waking up from a long nightmare," I replied, and I meant it. The weight I'd been carrying for months was finally gone. The office had changed too. After Sarah and David's dramatic exit, the company had implemented stricter policies about workplace relationships. I'd even heard rumors that they used our case as an example in their corporate ethics training. Talk about leaving a legacy. My career took an unexpected turn. All those coding classes I'd taken to distract myself, they paid off. A tech startup in the innovation district offered me a position as their lead developer. Better salary, better benefits, and a chance to build something new. I took it without hesitation. Sarah tried to stay in touch through mutual friends, sending messages about how well she was doing, how much she'd grown. I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved back in with her parents, taken a job at a smaller firm, started seeing a therapist regularly. Good for her, but it wasn't my concern anymore. David, from what Tom told me, had crashed and burned at his new job. Turned out his pattern of inappropriate relationships and expense account abuse followed him. Last I heard, he was trying to start his own consulting firm, but his reputation preceded him. 1 year to the day after I changed the locks, I sold the house. Too many memories, too much history. I bought a modern loft downtown, close to my new office. The realtor who helped me find it, Jessica, became more than just a business contact. We started getting coffee together, then dinner. No rush, no pressure, just two people enjoying each other's company. Tom teased me about it, of course. Moving on up in the world, aren't you? He said one day over lunch. New job, new place, new girl. Who doesn't work in your office, I might add. I had a laugh at that. Yeah, funny how life works out sometimes. Sarah heard about Jessica through our old social circle. She sent me one last text before I changed my number. I hope she makes you happy in all the ways I couldn't. I didn't respond. Some chapters need to stay closed. Looking back now, I can see how everything led to this point. Every red flag I ignored, every boundary I failed to enforce, every time I chose peace over principle, it all built up to that moment in the office, watching Sarah and David through the window. The other day, Jessica asked me if I had any regrets about how things ended with Sarah. I thought about it for a moment, remembering the good times, the bad times, the lies, the betrayal, the aftermath. No, I said finally. I don't regret ending it. I regret not ending it sooner. She squeezed my hand, understanding in her eyes. That's the thing about starting over. You get to choose who you want to be, what you want to accept, and most importantly, what you won't tolerate anymore. Sometimes people ask me if I'm bitter about what happened. I'm not. Sarah taught me valuable lessons about self-respect, about standing up for myself, about not letting someone else's choices define my worth. In a weird way, I'm grateful for that. Life is a funny way of working out. You think you're on one path, and then suddenly everything changes. But change isn't always bad. Sometimes it's exactly what you need to become who you're meant to be.